Hello, my name is Eddie, and today I'll be telling the story of Anansi and the moss-covered rock. So one day there was a spider named Anansi, and he was going through the forest when he found a rock. And this was a magical rock. So he looked at the rock and said, "Wow, that's a fascinating moss-covered rock." Then he fell over. He woke back up a couple hours later, and again he said, "Wow, that's a fascinating moss-covered rock." Then he fell over again. Eventually, he realized that it was a magical rock, and then he finally found the idea to trick his friends. So he went to his friend Lion's house and said, Lion, you have to see something." And then Lion said, "Okay." Then they went through the jungle, and then finally Anansi found the rock again. Then Anansi said, "Look, Lion, look." Then Anansi, the lion, said, "Wow, that's a fascinating moss-covered rock." Then the lion fell over. Then Anansi went over to Lion's house and stole all of his coconuts, then took them back to his house, and then put them in his pantry. Then he went to his friend Zebra's house and then said, Zebra, you have to see something." And then Zebra said, "Okay." Then Zebra and Anansi went back into the jungle, and then finally they found the moss-covered rock. So Anansi said, "Zebra, look." And then Zebra said, "Wow, that's a fascinating moss-covered rock." Then Zebra fell over. Then Anansi went to Zebra's house, took all of Zebra's food, then put it in his pantry for another day. He did this repeatedly until he had no other animals left, except for one. That animal was Little Bush Deer. Now, Little Bush Deer had been studying his patterns all along, and then finally she realized that he was tricking people. So then she went to the nearest coconut tree, took all the coconuts, then went back to her house, put it on her porch. Then she sat down waiting for Anansi until Anansi finally came. Then Anansi was like, Little Bush Deer, you have to see something." Then Little Bush Deer went, "Okay." Then they went back down to the jungle, and then Little Bush Deer saw the rock. And Little Bush Deer said, "Wow, that's a cool rock." Then Anansi said, "Well, what kind of rock is it?" Then Anansi said, "Oh, it's a gray rock." And then Anansi said, "No, it's not a gray rock. What type of rock is it?" And then Little Bush Deer went, "Anansi, it's just a rock." Then Anansi went, "It's not just a rock, it's a moss-covered rock." And then Anansi fell back over. So then Little Bush Deer had enough time to go to every animal in the jungle's house, take them back to Anansi's house, and then grab all their food back. Then they took it back to their houses and then put it back in their pantries. Then Anansi went back to his house, and he found out that they had stolen his all of their food back. So then Anansi finally realized to stop tricking. The end.